to add to what Manoj is saying, the reliefs are there. So even the Supreme Court has also recognized this aspect that the domain name plays the same function as a trademark. So if it's being equated to the trademark, you have the relief available both on the Trademark Act as well as the other arbitration mechanism that you mentioned, NICSI, as well as the WIP, the ICANN mechanism. But given the fact that, see, at the end of the day, it's also a question of the policy decision. You have to balance out the development of the World Wide Web and the domain name system with the kind of mistakes that can occur. So if each specific country provides for a mechanism of relief to be granted to anyone, then you will not make the domain name registrar specifically liable or ask them to carry out that due diligence before you allow for registration of this thing. Because at the end of the day, if you do have a right, any right in anywhere in the world, you have to enforce that right to get your remedy. And the enforcement mechanism is not absent in the country. It is, as most of the not structured properly. There are multiple options available. Some may cost a little more, some may be a little thicker, or maybe a little slow for you to get that. But the options for you in terms of remedy are exist.
Do we have time for more questions? No, that's it. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you all the panel members for those wonderful insights. Well, I'm sure we'll all go back home with more enriched knowledge about the e-com sector. I'm requested to please wait back on the stage because we'll be shortly presenting you with mementos as a mark of our token of respect and, of course, Thanksgiving. So Ms. Anand is here, and I request her to please present a memento to Ms. Sonia Baldia. Please put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen. Ma'am, may I please request you to hand over the memento? Yes, to Mr. Manoj Kumar. All right. So Mr. Rajesh Velakat and... All right, so that was the memento for Mr. Abhishek Malhotra, who's standing right towards the next end of the panel members. Next, we have Mr. Manoj Kumar, and all right. To Mr. Niket Agarwal. Bring your hands in synergy and let's give him a round of applause. And of course, last memento for Mr. Abhishek Malhotra. Ma'am, once again request you to please come up for the group photograph. So you're free to interact with our panel members, moderators during the networking break, which we'll have after the next session. Sector in the last few years, especially through the venture capitalist route. This session will be conducted in the form of a mediated debate with views expressed by the panel members first, followed by the audience subsequently. On that note, let's welcome our session members. Joining us first is our moderator for this session. Please put your hands together for Mr. Sailesh Vikram Singh, Executive Director, Seafront Ventures. Mr. Singh is an investor and entrepreneur presently heading the New Delhi operations of Seafront. He has over 18 years of experience in investing and business operations and strategy. He is a regular speaker at various industry forums and B schools and takes active interest in grooming future entrepreneurs and business students. That's nice. And Mr. Singh would be chairing this session. Welcome, sir. Thank you for those applauses. There should be no hesitation in extending the same. Next, I would like to welcome Mr. Alok Bansal, co-founder and CFO of PolicyBazaar.com. Please put your hands together. India's largest online insurance aggregator, Mr. Bansal, leads the finance department, including the corporate finance and controllership, treasury, tax, and strategic planning and analysis functions. He is also responsible for strategic alliance divisions of the organization. Hello, sir. Please now join me in welcoming Mr. Peesh Chopra, Managing Partner, Peesh Venture Capital. All right, so Mr. Chopra leads PVC's largest industry segments in education and mobile apps and currently serves as director of 8 PVC portfolio companies. He is a successful entrepreneur, experienced in business strategy, product management, marketing, and capital formation. He's a frequent speaker, of course, at the international finance, technology, and entrepreneurship events. And he is an investment partner with NASCOM and investor with the Indian Angel Network as well. Welcome, sir. I now request Mr. Rohit Dave, General Counsel, SRS Investment Advisors, to please join in the league of our eminent panelists on the stage. Mr. Dave is a corporate commercial lawyer with an MBA from Kellogg and a solicitor with the Law Society, England and Wales. He is well experienced in multiple areas of law, including corporate and commercial law, capital markets, takeovers, corporate restructuring, joint ventures, and real estate, to name a few. I further call upon Mr. Varun Tandon from TNT Law. Please put your hands together for him. Mr. Tandon is actively involved in the litigation practice and commercial advisory at TNT Law. He has substantial experience of litigation in areas such as civil, corporate, commercial, matrimonial, and election laws, and he advises clients on various matters relating to litigation strategy, preemptive legal actions in general. For the corporate and commercial practice, his core areas of advisory are joint ventures, commercial arrangements, labor laws. So with this, welcome all of you, and over to the moderator, Mr. Shailesh Vikram Singh, for taking charge of the session. A round of applause once again.
Hi, good afternoon. I think it's going to be even more tougher session post-lunch. I think everybody might be sleeping now. So to start, the topic is quite these are very active one, is whether the e-commerce and valuation, right? So before we start, let me ask you, how many of you think that there is a bubble in the economy? There is a bubble in the startup? Nobody? Just 2, 3, wow, I'm impressed. Oh, yeah. He's a e-commerce CEO, right? Okay. And how many of you think that the bubble will burst? One, just one. Oh, that's very good, yeah. So probably, yeah, I'm going to be the devil's advocate, rather I'm the devil, right? We are the VC, so I'm the devil here. And we think that the market is still very undervalued. So on that note, I will start. Okay, and probably we have with us Alok. Alok is the CEO of Policy Bazaar, and they just have raised a large round from a variety of investors, and again on a very, what you call, right valuation. So probably I will ask Alok, like say, what do devils or VCs look forward to? What kind of factors which we worry about?
Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. I've got a small cheat sheet also, so let me open that first. You know, whenever we talk about valuations or heating up in the market, my fundamental belief is if someone is paying and someone is buying, who is anyone else to ask? So there's always a right valuation. Now the topic says whether it's art or science. It's not very different from, say, stock market. You have a fundamental, you have a technical part. So when you have fundamental part where people are looking at opportunity, people are looking at the growth rates, people are looking at the sort of profitability, the contribution margins, different matrices, that tells you some strength of the business. But on the other side, there's almost equally important area of supply demand, incentive driven behavior for investors, liquidity crunch, sort of herd mentality, lots of other factors which will also drive these valuation numbers. So, you know, you have to keep that in balance. The foremost authority on valuation, Ashwath Damodaran, there was an article where he was working on looking at the overvaluation. This is the time when Uber was valued at around $16 billion, and everyone was thinking, why 16? It's too high for a business which doesn't actually own anything, which doesn't actually sort of control a lot of stuff on the business model. And he came up with some assumptions, and he came with a number of $6 billion. Once he had that number, he started discussing that with investors and other people, and he got to know about some more fundamentals about the business and what are they planning, and he changed some of the assumptions, and the number from 6 billion moved to 54 billion. That deal happened in 16 billion. Now, if someone looks at 6, someone looks at 54, obviously they will have a different view. So, there is no assets answer to this, whether it's an overvalued or undervalued market. I think if someone is valuing at whatever value they're willing to pay, it's the right value.
So right value is the word, whatever. So you are saying that the market, why we are worried about it, VC is investing, entrepreneurs taking inside, who are the thing. I think Varun has a probably little different view, especially on the GMV side, right? What do you want to say, Varun?
Hello. Yeah. I basically think that the GM. Okay. Sorry. I don't think that it's very overvaluation. I think that there is a wide gap between the actual revenue which a company owns and the GMV valuation. The X value is usually supposed to be multiplied by 2 to 2.5 times, but in many cases, I don't want to quote companies' names or examples, has gone up to 15 times or 18 times. There is, my only thing which I want to say is that there should be a correction in the valuation like any other industry. Because this is a new industry, but this is an industry which is here to stay, and it is coming with a big force.
So correction you think is the view because the GMV is happening, and so when you talk of GMV and multiples, that means there is science to it, right? Which is, well, so Alok is making a position, right? There is no science, there is no art. There's a transaction between two private entities, and they are making a case. There's no public involved, so why bother, right? And he says there's a science behind it. And I think, Piyush, what's your view? You think it's a science, it's art, or what's your view on this?
So at least, can everyone hear my audio? I think we're, yes?
Yeah,
okay.
I think so.
So I want to be clear in terms of context. So valuation, at least PVC is involved in early stage companies. And there are different valuation models that you can look at. Some of you are familiar with First Chicago. Some of you are familiar with perhaps discounted cash flow models, right? These are the professional models for valuations. But at the PVC level, where we're looking at tech, early stage tech companies, we don't use any of those models for valuation. But I want to pause and ask you a couple of questions. Who is familiar with growthers or has heard of a term called growthers? Raise your hand in the news or something like this. Okay, now keep your hands up, keep your hands up, keep your hands up, keep your hands up. How many of you who have your hands up or anyone else has heard of Webvan? Who's heard of Webvan? One person? You've heard of Webvan? Anyone else? Okay, I want to tell you the little story of Webvan for 2 minutes, and then the story of two companies you're very familiar with called Facebook and maybe one other. But Webvan raised 1.2 billion. 1.2 billion in 1999. The business that they were in is exactly the same business as Grofers, and they do not exist, and most of you have never heard of Webvan. So there will be companies that are overvalued and they come and go and XYZ, but some of you have also heard of a company called Facebook, yes? Facebook? Does anyone know how much Accel invested in Facebook? Anyone have any rough idea of Accel's investment in Facebook? They put $12 million into Facebook. That $12 million today, it's not arbitrary. It's a $10 billion outcome for Accel, right? So the third model, which if we have some time to drill into, is really the venture capital model to some extent. So Shailesh is also involved in a similar, I'm sure, modeling strategy. To some extent, the model is the PVC model. And it's a model that doesn't follow any GMV, or we're looking at businesses that are at idea stage. They barely have revenue. So the items that we're looking at are a lot more complicated than.
So what you're saying is
financial metrics.
there are multiple points. I cannot derive any confidence from the past. They are success, they are failures. So it's more of an art, right?
For art would be our position.
It's the art position, right? That's what PBC's position is. Now, Rohit, you have been involved into the other booming sector called real estate. You know, and you have seen the cycles which have happened. How do you look at it? The valuations which are being run right now. I'm moving away from this art and science. I'm going more in the how the investors are moving on. So what do you think about it? How is it going?
Yeah, as I've seen, I've seen the real estate side of the cycle, and as I was mentioning to you earlier, it's kind of becoming a momentum investing where you see one or two big investments happening, and the markets are suddenly moving into a lot of entities which have anything which is a prefix or a suffix with e or .com. Okay. Everyone kind of wants to say let's invest, and so. As you said, there's no science or anything in terms of valuation. Everyone, and I'm talking more so from the investment side. Sorry, no offense meant to anyone, but it's the idea of I don't want to miss the bus. Let me see whether if I can
we
also.
We call it FOMO.
Yeah, exactly.
Every VC talk about is FOMO, fear of missing out, right?
Yeah, exactly. So the thing is, generally the investment cycle is that let me do about 10 or 10 in 12 investments. I'll have one or two multi-baggers. 6, 7 would be kind of average, and 4 are kind of write-offs, But at the end of the fund cycle, at least I'll be coming out top in terms of I'll have a decent IRR. So that's where I see the mindset. I think it's good for the promoters because valuations are very nice. It's pretty good for them. But from a fund perspective, I'm not too sure as to how all of them will end up maybe 5 or 6 years down the line.
So I think here I will pause a little and I will give a brief on the. I understand. I think majority of you are probably lawyers practicing over the corporate. Very familiar with from industry side. So I also run a fund called Seed Fund. We are a very small fund. This is our second fund in line. The first fund was 15 million and second was some 54 million. You might have heard the company name like Redbus, like My Dentist, Vatsalyas, Carvale. We were the largest shareholder of all those companies, and that was we sold around 2 years back. The issue is today the venture capital. How do we operate? In the venture capital, we are paid to lose money. So out of 10 companies we invest, around 50% we write off. If we are lucky, it goes up to 60%, right? The issue is we do not worry about the write-off. What we worry about is the multi-bagger. So my multi-bagger, if I make 10 times in a company, is not a multi-bagger. My multi-bagger is when I make 50 plus or 30x plus. So like in Redbus, I made some 35x on one investment, right? And that's what returned me the whole money about. Now what is happening in India or everywhere world, the world of technology is moving very fast. So when it's moving very fast, the threshold of innovation is declining very fast. When the threshold of innovation declines, what you do, you kind of create a wall with the capital. So what the VCs are doing today, they are just having the 3 rounds. So what we call is the MPV round, where you put a $300K in a company. When the idea is just starting, I want to have a hypothesis. Okay, there is scope in the market. It's a growth. I see there is scope, and I put a 300K. Then I see little traction. I put 2 million. I put 2 to 5 million, and just see whether the company is gaining traction or not. And if that goes traction, what I do is in low innovation field, I do a scale round. A scale round is 20 million up to 100 million. That's it. Why I do that? Because I give a signal to everybody, boss, this is my space, I am invested in this, don't come into this. So it is to scare all other VCs to come in this, it is scare to all the entrepreneurs to try that. So that's why a lot of this scare round which are happening, they are not basically function of that company's top line or fundamental valuation. I as the investor believe that this area is going to be $1 billion area, and I want to capture the space. So basically what we call land grabbing. So we are trying to do the land grab of the internet world, of the mobile space, or the web world to dominate that. So that's what it is creating all kind of confusion. That's why it is fluffing between art and science part. But the other issue what we have to worry about is the kind of what happens with the high valuations. Probably Alok would like to talk about, like say, if you get too good a valuation, is a good thing, or too bad a valuation is bad thing. I think you're on the side.
There are 2 parts to it, Shailesh, actually. First is valuation seems like an end objective for most of the people. Valuation is just a number. Valuation can be up or down depending on the terms and conditions. And a lot of people miss that basic simple point. They are saying that investors will give you whatever valuation you want if they can take whatever terms they want. on liquidity preference, you can have participating, you can have multiplier, you can have lots and lots of anti-dilution rights, you can have lots and lots of stuff which will kill the meaning of that valuation for the company and for entrepreneur. So valuation seems very nice, but it's end of the day just a number. It has to be seen in the context. Now coming to your specific question on high valuation today, see, I fundamentally believe very, very high valuations today will mean extra pressure on company and the management team to deliver, but also in case there's ever a down round in future, it's obviously very, very demotivating. And not only demotivating, I think because investors will most of the time will have anti-dilution baked into the SHAs, it will mean that the management team and the promoters, they lose out and investors don't really lose out as much. So getting into a round with a very, very high valuation in mind and then sticking to it may not be the best policy for a company also.
That's an interesting point. So high valuation might not be very good even if you want it. Now when we talk about high valuation, we are talking about the basically late round valuation, right? So Piyush, how a very early stage investor like you is able to protect yourself? Because the terms are getting tougher and tougher, right? And they want to ease you off.
So, I think that if you look at what we're interested in when we move into an early stage company, maybe the first institutional round, it's the first investment somebody's received. See, we don't want to take a majority stake, first of all. We don't want 40, 50, 60% because then we're demotivating the entrepreneur from running the business and it's not his baby anymore. So if you look at it very simply, the metrics around PVC are we want to be maybe not more than 30%,
but we don't want to, if you're 30%, sorry, if you are 30% in the early round, right, by the Series C or Series E, you might be around 2%.
Right.
How do you protect yourself?
Two ways. One is follow-on in A, right? So if we come in at a seed, $500,000, we take a follow-on so we don't dilute out. But the second thing is we have a very different philosophy at PVC. We're not interested in all of this running around for GMVs. All of my batch one companies, all 6 are profitable.
But so, is that a really good strategy?
I think so.
Now that is an interesting point.
I think so.
So he believes, hold for a second, right? You believe the profitability is very great. What do you think about Alok? Are you sure?
See, there's always a balance between short term and long term.
What do you want?
So if you want to give numbers in 6 months, 1 year time frame, there's always a possibility for most of the business models to give that and deliver that. But these investors are not investing for 6 months; they're investing for 5 years, 10 years. And I have to look at long term also. I have to look at what product or what value proposition I'm giving and how much I have to invest to get to that.
You want growth, right? You want growth.
It has to be balanced. You can't really.
Balance is come on. This is safe.
No, but that's the reality, Sailesh. I mean, you can't let go of future revenue just to show today's revenue. But on the other hand,
but you can't get profitability, right?
You can.
See, standard word.
When you, no, it's not like that. Sailesh, you have to look at costs. Costs belong to 2 buckets. One is the variable cost and one is the below contribution line cost.
Yeah.
If you are doing better unit economics every period and the trend lines are showing that, okay, your contributions are able to cover your fixed costs at some scale, then you are right.
But not always.
Not always. Obviously, then you have competitions and then you have other pressures. So I think fundamentally, if you're directionally moving towards profitability, directionally,
so
in the short term. But it should not happen that in long term also the direction stays direction, it doesn't deliver.
Exactly, yeah.
Right. So I don't think short-term profitability should be the only metric. You have lots and lots of matrices which you need to track. Like for WhatsApp, one of the key metrics that they track actually is very different. They track daily active users divided by monthly active users. Perfect metric.
Yeah, that's a good
now,
metric,
yeah, for that metric, if they drive that metric, eventually they will be the business. But profitability cannot be the only metric.
So profitability cannot be only metric. You think the profitability is what your business are doing?
It depends on the type of business.
On the type of business. So but you like to invest in the profitable businesses.
When you see the failure of a Snap deal, and everyone runs in their holes for a little. We've already seen this in 1999.
Yeah.
This is not new.
Yeah, okay, this is not 99, or this is 99. So that's what the issue is. What do you think, Varun? Is it 99? Is not 99?
It's not 99, but I was going to say one thing that one gets the growth, the other gets the profitability. They're both things happening. You get the growth, you get the profitability.
Yeah, so you as a seeing the cycles, what do you like? Profitability and growth?
No, I think everyone is moving towards growth because that's what they want to do, and everyone believes that eventually there will be profitability. I have my doubts and I have my skepticism around the word profitability because it's something where everyone, right now, I mean, as you said, there are many companies which are going on the GMV model, exit and all that. But at the end of the day, I mean, if tomorrow they don't have a second round funding, third round funding, they're going to burn out. I mean, they're going to belly up or someone will acquire them. And that's when, in terms of profitability, there's a big question mark.
But the profitability itself, like Satish, again coming to you, so you believe the profitability is important, is very, very critical, right? But you might be having what we call the liquid oxygen businesses, right? They might be just hanging around. You might be doing 2 crore profitability, 3 crore profitability. Nobody cares about it. They can't get any exit around it. So do you really think it's a very valuable input?
I mean, I have a company doing 60 million top line and has, meaning they don't need to raise another round of capital because they're doing 80% on EBITDA. So the issue is the types of businesses you're investing in tech, you don't have to choose necessarily profitability or growth. Why can't you choose both? But if you build entrepreneurs and say, hey, just focus on growth and don't worry about money, when the merry-go-round stops, when the musical chairs stop, then what about all those people that have been misguided to believe that they should just drive? I mean, there are entrepreneurs coming to me with $10 million in valuation. They have nothing. So what kind of market are we breeding as VCs if we're not guiding entrepreneurs to say you need to think about, yes, growth, for sure, but you also have to think about cost and revenue and profitability. That's very important. And I'm not saying those are the only metrics of profitability. But why can't you build a successful business? Build a successful business.
Building successful business is, again, so at what scale? Look at Google, right? Google till 2002 has no visibility on the revenue they're going to make. They have not even heard of AdSense, right? Facebook has no revenue visibility for, say, 2009 or something, right? Twitter, people were not clear. So do you really think that it's possible to build a sustainable business is one of those very big school things which really happens?
For certain businesses, like for example, let's say Flipkart. Flipkart is an ace, and it's super undervalued. I'll tell you right now, Flipkart now is starting to hit the same GMV valuations as Amazon. But you know what? For Amazon, a hosting business was not even an idea 5 years ago, and now it's a $5 to $8 billion business.
Yeah.
So when you achieve that scale, when you see 4G released in India, we're going to start to see some phenomenon that's unheard of. And I think that's hard for us in the old school to understand these new scales and businesses and valuations. But not everybody's going to be that big.
Yeah, correct. So in every business, there will be losers, there will be... Sorry, Alok.
I want to add one thing. Most of these businesses are very early stage. So business model is still not proven, it's not established. And it will keep on innovating, whether we want to call it pivot, we want to call it innovation, whatever we want to call it. At such early stage of sort of maturity, I think eventually you have to look at only 2 things. One is the opportunity. And opportunity is a big word, whether it means market size, it means the sort of internet penetration, it can mean mobile, whatever we want to call it, but the overall opportunity and the team, whether this is the right team to deliver on that opportunity. Because, things will keep on changing. And if you start focusing on just, and obviously you said that profitability is not the only thing, but if you start focusing on a very, very narrow set of matrices, including profitability only, then you may miss on some of these innovation stuff. And again, as I said, you're not building business just for next 6 months, you're building for little long term at least. So somewhere you have to look at the big picture also.
Yeah, I would also look at in 2013, this year, I think India is now 3rd largest startup market. I mean, so if you want to comment about that, I mean, there's a reason why Americans are in India, right? There's something going on here that's super important and super big for the next 10, 15, 20 years. And it's not just the 1.2 billion consumers. We are also looking at India as a producer, where India can produce net new global innovation. Like, for example, I've written articles on, hey, Uber's losing to Ola, actually.
Correct.
Okay. So anyway, these are, I think, important pieces for India's people.
Yeah, numbers are there. But overall freedom thing is between buyer and seller. And the buyers believe that the market can be very, very large. As Pete said, that there are some companies which will fall around, there are some companies which will really become big, and that's what the faith is. And giving some numbers to you is that in India attracted close to 9.6 billion in the start of the last 2 years. $9.6 billion in the last 2 years, right? Out of that, just top 10 companies captured close to 50% of the money. So 9.6 billion means a lot, right? It's close to 50,000 crores, which has gone to startups. If you look at the loan of the JP Group alone, it's 70,000 crores, right? And if you look at the loan of Lanco, it is around 80,000 crores, okay? So if anybody think that there's too much money in startups is peanuts. SR is 99,000 crores, right? This is one data, right? So when we talk about these numbers and this valuation and everything, there's a perspective we need to have. And one more perspective I will give is, like say on e-commerce, there's a lot of discussion on being in a bubble or being large around, right? Future Group in 2002 started a retail business and they borrowed close to 6,000 crores. The 6,000 crore at that time, $40 was 40 rupee exchange rate, was close to around 1.5 billion. So using 1.5 billion, they have built a business.
See, the whole problem with Shailesh and team at that time was they wanted 10x, 30x in 5 years. Now it has changed. In India, it's now 10 years. Nobody can exit any business before 10 years. Very clear. Unless you find another guy who's ready to pay. Nobody's ready to pay, right? The problem is that VCs don't get into management. Problem is there were businesses which could have been sustained. And people really worked hard, lost out. Just if the VC was smart enough, I mean, if it was my money, I put money in Reliance shares, I put money in ICICI Bank, I watch my share, right? Because it's not the VC money, he doesn't go to that office and find out what are the number 2 doing. It's just the number 1. That is the most irresponsible thing that has happened with many failures. Plus, some of the VCs who made money, they might, you see, if you really look at 2 successful exits, it's Make My Trip or Naukri. Actually, there are not many exits in India if you count, right? I may be, wrong. I am a business development guy. I know Yashish. I mean, some of the approaches to business are very good. But I want to ask Shailesh that VC, isn't he a responsible human being? Yeah, there are 450 people working in that company, and one CEO with one Excel sheet is fooling everybody around the country, and at least 81 crores went down the drain, and no VC is responsible.
Which company talking?
I mean, let's not get into that because I work there, because why I'm saying is IIT gold medalist.
No, the point is, I tell you,
a VC is an IIT gold medalist.
The point is,
but the point is, if he can't read an Excel sheet, which I am just a plain guy. I mean, I'm a business guy. I can read it. I could read it 5 years back. I could read it now. Yeah, that is what has gone wrong.
No, there is nothing gone wrong.
No, it has gone wrong from one point. The point is that a good guy goes back to a brick and mortar business. I am today working for a company which owns 14 patents. Because I will still get a job. But the point is, there was an opportunity to run that company correctly because of this liquidation thing. Because these laws can get away, CEOs get away by doing nothing. Second, the telecom boom helped people make money because the TRA was not strong. People made hundreds of crores by putting various applications.
Excuse me, what's the question?
So the question is, Shailesh, as an investor, when you look at your share portfolio, but you look at the guy's company, there are hundreds of people working in that company.
So that is you're making comment.
Why? No, I'm not making a loose comment. I'm not making a loose comment. Why? Because you are at the board level. There is so much happening.
That is, you're not aware of it. So basically there are 2 issues.
No, I'm aware of it because I have 14 years, I've worked in this.
14 years mean nothing. So let us come to the point. So basically there are 2 issues. There's a very important issue I think we need to address this. Is basically how much VCs are involved in the business, right? As a VC, I would like, probably Peach can also, or probably also, because he's running a company. So there are a lot of views, there are 2 views. A lot of VCs want to run a company. So when I say as an investor, when you get in a company, basically it becomes a backseat driving, right? So who's the wheel? The wheel is the guy, the entrepreneur. So the point is, if you sit down, you sit behind him and keep on telling him, do this, do that, it becomes a backseat driving and it becomes very, very complicated. It's a very, very complex mating dance, I call, right? If you intervene too much, you destroy the confidence of the person. If you start running. So what we realize, that the company goes down, the moment the transfer, the risk of the business move from the entrepreneur to the investor. The moment you do that, once you get over-involved with, right, you do it. So it's like a parenting, right? A lot of people who do parenting, they destroy. The problem in India, especially in a country like us, we are always very over-parental country, right? For everything there's a rule, for everything there's a law, for everything there's charter list of this. What we achieve? Nothing, right? The point is, as an investor, you should have the maturity to invest in the team where you invest and the belief that they are trying to do it. Because as an entrepreneur, frankly, all these valuations, no money goes to his bank. All the money goes to the company. Every company has been run with tight controls. They are There are tons of things, and there are always bad, apples or lemons around. But the issue is how much a VC should get involved. My learning of this last 20 years is that the more a VC get involved, the worst thing. The best value addition a VC can do as a company is not get involved at all. Because I do not understand the game. If I know the business, then I would be running the game rather than being entrepreneur. Because at the end of the day, the real hero is entrepreneur. We are the background noise. We are the referee at the site, and we remain that. I never aim to become the hero. The hero is the one guy, he's my entrepreneur, where I'm backing it up. Everything else is secondary. And I'm in the side rails. Right? That's what I believe. And if the day I believe that I know better than my CEO, then I will be CEO rather than not him. Right? So we are very, very strong in this thing. And I personally believe that. Any view or all of that?
See, as management team and as entrepreneur, we would not want day-to-day interference at all. In fact, we make sure that in our final agreements, we have the bandwidth and the freedom to run operations without too much interference. I would definitely want broad level guidance. We'll have strategic discussions at the board level. We'll take board approval for whatever is required in terms of, say, even funding limits, obviously M&A, some other investment in subsidiaries, or all that stuff, whatever is mentioned. But on a day-to-day basis, if you start waiting for approvals, it kills the spirit of the business. You just cannot. Even if it's written on the paper, most of the entrepreneurs will not take it. So let it be written, but no one is going to wait for VCs or board to approve. You drop in a mail and you go ahead. You say, if someone has objection, come back. But to your point, we have talked about company, we have talked about investors. But end of the day, entrepreneur is also an individual. I was talking in a session in the morning on term sheets, and lots of times this fact gets missed out that this is also an entity who has to take care of their own interest also. When you're talking about